Morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's training. So today is about thermal cameras. I think you all know about the thermal temperature screening cameras and all those kind of things. We've done a whole lot of webinars on them. Today, though, is not about those cameras. We're talking about the normal thermal cameras used for security and those kind of things, not for temperature screening. So we are going to talk about the normal cameras, the normal thermal cameras, a couple of, the product variety that we've got, basically a couple of cameras that we've got in the variety. And then after the thermal, this presentation, then Damon's going to show us a live demo again of how to configure these cameras. So that'll be awesome for the tech guys, sales guys. You're more than welcome to stay for that. I think it'll help be beneficial for all, for tech and sales, to see the whole presentation from start to finish, as well as a live demo, because it just increases your knowledge about these things and maybe sort out a few things on site, maybe some problems that you've had before, and possibly how to sell these things better, to have a better idea of what they are capable of. So welcome once again. I am Rual, and we are going to carry on with this training this morning. Let me just get my laser pointer started here. By the way, I am recording this so that I will be able to send you the video after the training. So yeah, you're more than welcome to look out for that. Okay, let's have a look and see what thermal cameras are all about. So we're going to focus mainly on the stuff that's been released in 2020. We'll also maybe touch on some cameras that's been around for a little bit longer, but still obviously valid to use. Okay, so this is a new update that we've had recently. The cameras you'll see at the end of the model number, there's a model number in front of this, and then it ends with a /P or a /PA. Now, this is a much more affordable range of cameras. So you can see it's a lower resolution, which makes it cheaper. But what we've done now is we've increased the resolution from a 2 megapixel to a 4 megapixel. So that's for the /P series. It's a more affordable range of cameras, lower resolution thermal, but higher resolution on the optical side. And then if we look at the PA series, it's basically the same on that side there, same thermal resolution, 4 megapixel optical, but we've added audible alarm and a strobe light in these cameras. And then we have this nice little guy over here. This guy is meant for maybe monitoring DB boards, machinery, those kind of things. So you can see it looks slightly different, possibly even server rooms and things like that. So this guy is the TA21. It runs a 160 by 120 low resolution thermal, 2 megapixel optical resolution on there, and the temperature measurement range runs from -20 to 150, or then 20 to 350, depending on which model you buy. Temperature accuracy also quite high, so it's of the higher range of temperature accuracy. And you'll see throughout the presentation which ones are more meant for temperature accuracy and more for the security side on these things here. All right, let's quickly have a look at the rest. So the traditional security cameras we've got from the very, very popular bullet over here to the bispectrum bullet. So the bispectrum meaning that it's got both optical and thermal, where this one is thermal only. Then we have the long range thermal bullet only, so thermal only, but long range in the sense of 50 millimeter, 75 and 100 millimeter lenses on these guys over here. And also long range, but bispectrum, so both optical and thermal. Smaller PTZs, PTZ linkage, so this is like a dark fighter PTZ, normal optical PTZ linked with a thermal bullet. And then we go on to the bispectrum PTZs, positioning systems, stable positioning systems, and then your more specialized anti-corrosion, explosion-proof, and then also explosion-proof PTZ type. So there's quite a bit to look out for. There's a big range. This is not all, there's some more. Then we look at the thermography range. So these guys have been optimized for temperature measurement. So the temperature measurement on these guys is plus or minus 2 degrees. If I just go one slide back, these guys here, the temperature for measurement for these guys are plus or minus 8 degrees, because they've been more used for security rather than temperature measurement specifically, where these guys over here are a little bit more specialized or optimized on the temperature measurement. So they're plus or minus 2 degrees. So yeah, quite nice. I think you've seen some of the handouts throughout this lockdown period. We've been having webinars on thermal temperature screening and so forth, and that's where the TP31 and so forth, TP21s and so on comes in. But yeah, we have them for the normal usage, day-to-day usage as well. All right, then if we look at the commercial vision side of things, a little bit more commercial. So this is more for your security patrols and so forth, border patrols, security guards, policing, and those kind of things. So more handheld types. You can see the monoculars. So because they only have one little thermal, one lens basically built in. And then we go to the binoculars. You can see here some shorter range, longer range, and then also for scopes. So for rifles and those kind of things, this is a new addition. It's a clip-on also for rifles and guns and so on. And then we have the modules themselves. So the thermal module that's built into these devices. So we have versions that works with a shutter, and that'll be more based on these type of cameras, not the thermography range specifically, but your normal type of cameras will have a thermal module with a shutter. And then we have a shutterless version, which is more used in the handheld versions for, that handles a lot more movement and so on. The unit itself moves a lot more. So we don't want to have a shutter in them because it might cause blurs and things like that. Okay. So for those of you that don't know what a thermal camera is or thermal technology, you can see this image here. Let me just quickly get that video playing as well. So this video, you can see there, all of a sudden, there's a guy with a torch. Let me just play that again. So from the start, this is a normal optical camera, and this is the thermal image from a thermal camera next to it. So you can't really make out anything on this until the guy switches on his torch over there. Then only you would notice that person. Now the thing is with thermal saw the guy. Let me play that video again for you. Thermal saw that guy a long time before the optical camera could, because thermal is not dependent on light. Actually, light doesn't affect thermal at all, because you can see this light on this pole over here is not affecting the thermal camera as it does with the normal optical camera. So a thermal camera is based on temperature measurement or temperatures of objects. So any temperature, you can see here, let me get my mouse pointer again. Any object with a temperature above absolute zero. Now, absolute zero is the coldest that we have ever measured, minus 273 degrees Celsius. Anything above that temperature will emit some kind of thermal radiation, and that's where a thermal camera will pick it up. The thermal camera will notice those kind of things immediately, and an optical camera obviously is dependent on light. It needs some kind of a light source, either light bouncing from an object or light shining from an object, like we see the guy over there. All right, so why do we use thermal cameras? What is the purpose then of a thermal camera? A lot of times we don't have any light sources, and a lot of times what happens, you've got IR cameras, but the IR is limited to the reach that it's got. So infrared will obviously only shine maybe 100 meters, 500 meters, or something like that, and we need to see beyond that. Or sometimes there's not a lot of light at all on the site and things like that. So that's where the thermal camera comes in, because it doesn't need any light source at all. Right. Also, smoke, haze, smog, those kind of things that a normal optical camera with or without IR struggle to see through. Your thermal camera will see through that. Obviously limited to how thick this gets, but it is not nearly as much affected as an optical camera. Backlighting, shadows, reflection, headlights, blooming. You can see the like headlights. It's typical like a typical car maybe driving towards an optical camera would possibly blind the camera, where a thermal camera is not affected at all. So snow, fog, rain will fall into the same category as that over there. It's not nearly as much as affected as an optical camera. Okay, all right. So now, where does thermal cameras fit in? Okay, because we have this range of thermal cameras, we basically have a thermal camera for just about every use. And it's become so cost effective these days that it's very competitive when it comes to price, because of a few things. We've got a lower resolution. The 160 by 120 makes it much more affordable. And also the other reason is we are manufacturing our own thermal sensors, which also brought down the price quite dramatically. We didn't do that from the start. We only started with that about, I think, last year or the year before. We started with our own thermal sensor manufacturing. That also brought the price down. So it has become much more cost effective. To small to medium businesses and so forth, obviously larger solutions also. Onboard flexible VCA rules. So we've got analytics running on the thermal cameras themselves. They've got AI deep learning built in. So they can already do target classification for you, perimeter defense, temperature measurement, like we've seen quite a few times, during lockdown, as I mentioned. We can see the thermal channel and the optical channel simultaneously on the NVRs, or even your backend software, 4200X Central, wherever. It has just, become so much more affordable and so much more domestic, if I can call it that, where it's in the reach of most companies, most smaller companies as well. Now, to quickly show you what image fusion does, because we've got bispectrum thermals, some of them can do image fusion. Now, the thermal camera doesn't have a lot of detail. Like you can see, this is the optical image. We can clearly make out who this person is, etc. But from a thermal image, you cannot really tell. Okay, there's not a lot of detail here. You can't really make out anything there. But if we fuse the two images, you get something like this, like almost a detailed type of thermal image, where you can start reading things. You can see there's some letters there, the letters that's visible only on the optical camera, because we take the optical image and the thermal image and we put them together, we fuse them together to give you this more detailed type of thermal imaging. And that's what image fusion is all about. Okay, so we break up thermal range in basically like a short range and a long range. So we're going to talk about the short range first. So short range, if you look at line crossing and intrusion detection, like I mentioned before, they've got analytics built in. And then we have the short range cameras that will reach up to about 70 meters maximum for the short range cameras. So to quickly show you the video, this is an optical image and this is the thermal image, where you can compare. If we look at those two, you can see like an optical camera is affected by the amount of light coming from the vehicle. The thermal image not affected by the light at all. It shows you heat signatures and you can see in complete darkness. Okay, so this can be used at estates, larger companies, museums, small farms even, because 70 meters is normally big enough to reach most of the areas and so forth, and only when you get to your larger perimeters and so on that you start adding or using the longer range thermal cameras. But we're going to get to the longer range a little bit later. All right, this is a typical scenario. This was a bicycle warehouse. Bicycle warehouse needed some protection, protect the store from violent entries and so on, obviously break-ins, those kind of things. Their previous solution was some vibration intrusion detectors. It wasn't effective at all, because these things needs to be installed on every single window, every single door. Anything that can open could be broken into. So you can see it needed to be installed in every window between 2 and 3 meters, which lead to a high labor cost. Okay, now we know thermal technology is not cheap. It has become a lot more affordable these days, but it's not a cheap technology if you look at the item pricing. But if you look at what this one item can do for you, it could cut down on that dramatically, and possibly even the equipment cost, because you can go for a lot less of these cameras than having to install so many more type of detectors and optical cameras and also your thermal camera gives you a high accuracy in the dark. So again, you don't need to add a lot of spotlights and light up town to get this camera to work. All right, so if you look at the whole system cost, the overall cost, the bigger picture, this might be a cheaper solution. I think cheaper than a lot of people would think it would be. All right, so don't be scared off by the price of a single item. Look at the bigger picture of how many you actually need, and I think you might be surprised on that. All right, this is another successful case. This was a parking lot. So parking lot of secondhand cars and so forth. Problem that these guys had is thieves would steal tires and car batteries and things like that. Okay, now it's a big area to cover with optical cameras, and again, optical cameras is limited by the amount of light that you have in that area, and obviously the infrared coming from the camera. So what they had then, they had security guards patrolling the area. The problem is that a security guard will obviously take routes and do patrols and whatever, those kind of things, but it'll take a long time before he comes back to the same point to check that point again. So that delay, by the time he's passed that area and come back again, the car might have lost all 4 tires and the battery and the radio and all those kind of things. So with a few thermal cameras, you don't have those delays. They're constantly watching the area, and it could be completely dark. It's not affected by the car headlights and stuff. Maybe if they try to blind the camera with headlights and things like that, it's not affected by that. So you will immediately pick up a person from that, from those images. This is another application. I think you can tell from the picture where it is. This should look familiar, or should give you a hint at least. This portion of the image here. All right, so this is an estate where they had issues and those kind of things. So they wanted to prevent intrusion of this private areas, obviously the perimeter fences and so on. And their previous solution was some PIR, so passives and so on this, outdoor passives on the perimeter fences and optical cameras and those kind of things. But the thing is that they will get triggered by birds, cats, leaves, a lot of false alarms. And if we all know that, it's human. If you receive so many false alarms, when the real alarm comes through, you're going to think that it's probably just another false alarm and maybe not even react on that. So thermal camera is obviously the answer there. Thermal cameras, like I mentioned earlier, they've got AI built in. They can already do human and vehicle classification for you. So when you do get an alarm from a thermal camera, it's going to be a real alarm. And also the reach of these thermal cameras can reach much further than an optical camera does. When it comes to picking up heat signatures and so on. A thermal camera you need less thermal cameras around this perimeter fence than you would need optical cameras. So that could bring the prices down. You need less cameras, you need less installation points, less trenching, less everything. So again, if you look at the larger picture, this might just be a cheaper option and obviously a lot more accurate. Okay, this is a data center where they use some thermal cameras inside. So they wanted to do fire prevention. In a data center, fire prevention is big on the list or high on the list. They used some thermometers and so on to measure temperatures inside, but obviously that's not been quite effective. I mean, if you have a fire down there, if you have a temperature sensor closer to here, it's going to take a while before this thing starts picking up the temperatures coming from a fire, and then maybe by that time it's too late. So again, thermal cameras have got fire detection built into them, so it's another algorithm running on them to detect these things, and obviously along with the temperature measurement that it can do, can easily and quickly pick up temperature differences and obviously alert the control rooms, and you might be able to save your data center. So again, there's different options. This is for a wider area, this is for smaller things to monitor. So if you have specific things you want to monitor, this is your guy. All right. So you can see where this one has been used like a typical DB board and so on. And we all know that if something's about to pack up, it starts heating up and so on. It's with an optical camera, it's impossible to know whether it's going to pack up. But with a thermal camera, you can already see that, hold on, this contact point here is heating up a lot more than the others. Let's make a plan. Let's switch it off. Let's redo the connection because it's probably going to cause a fire soon. So with these cameras, you can also do temperature measurement or temperature difference alarms. So I can set up different measuring points over here. And if one or more points are different to the others with a certain amount of degrees, then that could alert you. So again, you don't need an operator to monitor these things constantly and purely just go on the coloring of it. There's enough analytics built into these cameras to do a pre-alert or alert you soon enough when it picks up deviations. Okay, so when it comes to compatibility, our thermal cameras, as you can see, is already compatible throughout the bank with our I-series NVRs, our Hik Central. It's already a very old Hik Central. We're already sitting at 1.6. IBM is 4200. Again, it's an old version. eConnect, an old version. So you can see that the thermal cameras have been compatible with all of our software for quite some time. When it comes to the analytics, when it comes to fire detection, temperature measurements, it's for the alarms, for the rule info. You can see the rule info, the rules have been drawn over here. So let me quickly show you a few videos. This is from Hik Central, the VCA alarm. So if I click on that there, you can see intrusion detection triggered there, immediately getting an alarm in Hik Central. It's a line crossing, getting a trigger. Okay, that's your alarm center in Hik Central. You're getting your alarms through, and you can immediately see what happened. If you're not actively monitoring the screen, you'll get an alert through your alarm center in Hik Central. Then we've got a historical temperature report that we can draw from Hik Central. So we can go into Hik Central and say, show me, the report for last week, last month, last whatever, between certain points. So you can compare certain points with each other to see if there's any things that stands out a little bit more than others to get historical reports from these cameras. Maybe measuring your specific machinery, things like that, to get a histogram of that, to know that sometimes these machines work harder than others. We need to do maintenance a little more frequently, or whatever the case might be. But it is a good thing to get these kind of reports, because you can start forming trends to see certain times of the month things work harder than others, whatever. Okay, and then this one is from Hikconnect. So let me quickly show you Hikconnect alarm there. You can see the rule info on Hikconnect, alarm triggers and so on, also coming through to Hikconnect. So also compatible with that. Okay. All right, then we've got a nice little tool. It's called a thermal design tool. It's available on our website, so you can follow this link. Or if you can just have time to quickly write down this link or whatever, you'll see. If you go to our website, you're going to go to support and then tools. And under tools, we've got a tremendous amount of tools there. It's free of charge you can use. And one of them is a thermal design tool. Now, the thermal design tool, you're going to select specific cameras from it, and that'll give you the blind spots and so on. So you can see here, this particular camera's installed there. It'll show you the bit of blind spot that you're going to get below the camera and from where it's going to start detecting, and obviously angles. So this is very handy for maybe bill of quantities, speccing sites, those kind of things, making sure you cover what you need to get covered. So a nice tool to use. So go have a look at our website. It's on there and free to use. All right, let's quickly have a look at the P and the PA. So it's either a P or a PA, one of the two behind the model number over here. To quickly give you a breakdown, this is a thermal camera. So DS-2 is Hikvision front end. TD is for a thermal camera range. And then it's like a 2 series or whatever on our thermal ranges. What's important to know from this model number is the 1 over here. So you'll see this has got a 1. That's also got a 1 over there. Some of the other cameras will have a 3 or a 6 instead of the 1 over there. So the 1 means, or it refers to the 160 by 120 resolution. So that's your resolution. That 1 over there is depicted by this number. If you have a 3 in this model number over here, then it means it's a 384 resolution. And if you have a 6 over here, it's a 640 resolution. Okay, so that depicts the resolution of the thermal camera. And if you see a 7 behind here, a 7 means that it is our own Hikvision manufactured thermal sensor. Okay, so all the new thermal cameras will have a 7 over here, which means that it's our own sensor. And you know that it's very cost effective and a proper one to use. The other thing after the dash, you'll see -3, -6, -10, or whatever. That's the lens, the thermal lens. Okay, so it's either 3 millimeter, 6 millimeter, 10 millimeter, or whatever, right? So this goes for any of our thermal cameras. After the dash, you'll have the lens millimeters, or the focal length of the lens, and then you'll have the P or the PA for the cheaper range, so the more cost-effective ranges. And as I mentioned before, the Ps will be the 160 by 120 resolution like this, and it'll have a 4 megapixel optical, 4 megapixel optical resolution from the optical camera. Sorry, I stumbled over my words there. The PA is the same spec, but it adds the A, which means we've got the audible alarm and the strobe light coming from the camera. Okay, so there's your built-in strobe light and audible alarm for the PA series. Temperature accuracy on this one also plus or minus 8 degrees. So if you want to monitor machinery and those kind of things, then maybe this is not the better one to go for. Then you want to have the T range, which is plus or minus 2 degrees if you want to have more accuracy on that. And the temperature measurement range, the temperatures that these cameras can measure is -20 to 150 degrees, which is normally good enough. So these cameras here, quite wide angle, as you can see from the lenses over here, quite wide angle. So nice to use maybe inside warehouses and offices and server rooms and places like that, even wide outside areas, maybe like a smallish type of a parking lot and so on. So short range, but wide angle. All right, now when it comes to this particular camera, the one we just mentioned, we had numerous awards that we received for this camera, especially in the fire security departments. We won a few awards over there. for fire detection with us. So there was a show, like typically like IFSEC and FireX show, and we won an award for fire detection, early fire detection with this cameras. We didn't use smoke detectors and temperature detectors and things like that, or was it CO2 detectors and so on. We used our thermal camera, and this did a tremendous job, and we actually got an award for that. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, again, these cameras, the P and the PA cameras, that's your short range type of, if you want to use it for perimeters and so on, and obviously temperature measurement for fire prevention, awesome little camera to use. All right, so where did we use traditional thermal cameras? I think we can basically fathom where we can use them. Border security, larger plants, things like that. There's a solar plant over there, substations. A very important thing to use is the thermal camera at substations if you want to monitor your connections, like on these pylons or maybe transformers and things like that. You can get early detection before those things are about to go boom. So then you can do your maintenance, preventative maintenance, and so on. Forest fire prevention, because we've got analytics built into these cameras that does fire detection. They also fire detection, warehousing, and so forth. Imagine the cost if a warehouse where it burns down. And if you can pre-detect that or detect that at early stages with a thermal camera, you could save that whole warehouse and obviously all the stock. Farms, I mean, the same type of thing goes for farms and plantations and so on. Airports, it's got a lot of safety for people around there. If you can do early detection again, it helps you, and so on. So you can see there's quite a few applications where it can be used. All right, so this is more than the long range thermals. We'll use the longer range thermal cameras on these guys over here, and also quite wide areas. So you can see there's quite big areas to cover. So we're going to use the longer range thermal cameras here. Bad lighting condition, yes, it does affect, or doesn't affect the thermal, but obviously for optical cameras, you're going to have to put quite a few cameras along these areas. As you can see, they are big areas. So if you're going to go for optical cameras, you're going to need a lot of higher range IRs or things like that, or you can go for a lot fewer, but with thermal cameras, because we don't depend on lighting. All right, and obviously accuracy 24/7 on the alarms. All right, so how do we go further in the security market with thermal? All right, our approach to this is we need to continually enhance competitiveness of the products. We are improving these products on a day-to-day basis, almost giving you more, giving you better, and those kind of things. So we need to improve everything to stay top of the market. Okay, so for the VCAs, and Damon will show us how to configure the VCAs. So I'm not going to go into too much detail over here, but what is important to know to get your thermal cameras more accurate when it comes to analytics is not to draw one intrusion detection box, let's say for a large area, or one line crossing for a large area. Break them up. You've got multiple rules, up to 8 rules per thermal camera that you can set up. So break them up into smaller pieces and give each area its own minimum, maximum object sizes that needs to look for. And that'll give you a lot more accuracy on them, right? So that's where I'm going to leave it. For this part, Damon will show us a little bit later how to set this up and how to configure it to get to reduce this false alarms over here. All right, so here you can see there's a whole bunch of applications or examples really of how to break it up. So again, you've got a thermal camera, up to 8 rules that you can set up on a thermal camera. That includes obviously line crossing, intrusion detections, region entrance, region exit. So use them. All right, so use up to your 8 rules. If you've got a longer area to use them, break it up into smaller pieces, let them overlap a little bit. You can see all of these are overlapping slightly, and each one will have their own little minimum, maximum object size they were looking for, are looking for. So it'll bring your accuracy much higher. All right. Electromagnetic or electronic image stabilization. So EIS has been built into the thermal cameras now. These are little videos I'm going to quickly show you. So if you have a camera maybe mounted on a pole, windows shaking it around outside or whatever, it's going to bring down your accuracy of your alarms because there's just too much going on the camera. It's going to be difficult to focus. All right, so if I show you this little video over here, image stabilization has been enabled here, which will bring your accuracy way higher. So less false alarms or more real alarms, if you want to look at it that way. All right. Okay, so we've improved the algorithm. Algorithm has now been improved. You can see, okay, I'm just not going to keep my, let's just go for the laser pointer. Previously, the box that it drew around the object that it detects was too large. You can see it's quite a large thing. There's a small little dog or a cat or whatever, but the box is probably about 3 times the size of the object itself. Now, depending on your minimum object size and maximum object size you set up, this might not trigger the alarm, but it should have, or something like that. Or it might trigger your alarm where it shouldn't have if it was smaller. So we have optimized those algorithms. Now you can now see the newer firmware will give you a much smaller box around the object, will then make sure that it does not trigger the alarm. So previously you can see it triggered the alarm where it shouldn't have, but now it's a much smaller box. So it is smaller than the minimum size that was set up in this example, which means no more triggers. So that'll help a lot with false alarm reduction. All right, this one over here, the algorithm again has been improved for false alarm filtering. And again, the analytics built in to do target classification, so human and vehicle. So you can see previously the line crossing was triggered by this dog, where it is not now anymore, because we classify this as not human or vehicle, so no alarms coming from the right-hand side one with the latest firmware on it. Okay, a lot of other things. Yes, these are leaves and stuff. They also have some kind of a heat signature because their temperature is above minus 273 degrees Celsius. So they will, or they might trigger your analytics. So a lot of these interferences would interfere with the camera. The camera needs to obviously process all these things to check if you get a line crossing or something like that. So we've optimized the algorithm now to disregard a lot of the leaf interferences and so on. So you can see, compared to the previous one, a lot less that it picks up now to obviously reduce false alarms again. So this comes with a firmware update. So the algorithm's been updated in the firmware, and that's also one of the reasons why you need to keep your firmware updated to the latest. Another thing where the algorithm has been updated, things like this heat signature from the reflection of the sun, previously did trigger the alarm or did pick up that as a temperature, high temperature. You can see here 426 degrees that it picked up from that little spot there. Again, the latest algorithm has been updated where that is not affecting it at all. You can see over there, and we don't have alarm triggers and stuff from it anymore. So much better now when it takes those kind of things into consideration. Also, I think you'll see on one of the next slides another optimization. Okay, so external capability, third-party integration. Again, you guys know us. We are very open for third-party integration. In fact, we help with that. We promote it. So part of that promotion, just to give you an idea, for our analytics, it's been upgraded, or it's been integrated into all of these software, and obviously a lot more, not just limited to these. So all the analytics has been updated in there, so they're capable of reading our metadata. When it comes to fire detection, specifically mirrors, this is one of the first ones to do it, but I'm sure this list has been updated now already. Temperature measurements, the rule info to show these rules on the live screens, live videos and playbacks, and those kind of things have also been updated, so compatible with all of them. So, but like I said, I think this list is quite old. I'm sure there's been a few improvements or a few updates regarding this. So third-party integration, we're absolutely open for it. If you have a customer that maybe has already a back-end system, something like this, and they want to have an integration, we are open. We can give you the SDKs. We will help with that. So please do not shy away from it. If you have a talk to us and say, listen, they've got a ActionSoft back-end system, whatever, how far is the integration, and can we do it, etc., etc. So then we look into that. Okay, how do we create growth in the thermal market? Okay, that's a big question. A lot of people, like I said, shies away from it because they think it's a very expensive exercise and those kind of things. But if you look at the bigger picture, then it is not. If you look at the amount of cameras or reduction in your bill of quantities and so forth, if you go for thermals, and nowadays we've got the bispectrum, or not nowadays, we've had them for quite some time, but we've got bispectrum, which means that you still have an optical channel and a thermal channel, so 2-in-1 type of cameras. But now, how do we grow it from there? Right. So we grow it with a thermography range. Okay, the thermography, again, you've seen quite a few of these in the last few webinars over lockdown period. The TP21, a very popular unit, as well as the TP31, the more cost-effective version. And we've optimized these now for temperature screening as well, for COVID purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to go through all the specifications. All I want to show you here is that most of them have got an optical module built in, so basically bi-spectrum, thermal and optical, except for the TP31. That's a cost-effective one. That's only a thermal imager that's built into there. Temperature measurement range from -20 to 550. Obviously, if you've got the temperature screening version of this for human temperature screening, then this will go between 30 and 45 degrees. So you can see on this slide here, on this type of firmware, the usage of these cameras is more for inspections and things like that, maybe substations, server rooms, those kind of things for preventative maintenance purposes. All right, okay, there we go. That's just a repeat of what I just mentioned. So preventative maintenance is where you'll use these kind of things. And I think we all know preventative maintenance could be a huge cost-saving factor. So it's, prevention is better than cure. So before the place burns down, if you can do a little bit of maintenance, it's going to be a little bit cheaper than having to replace the whole warehouse and all the equipment in it. So maybe think about it that way. Okay, now when it comes to this camera here, we've got the IVMS 4800. It's not the 4200, standard 4200. It's an IVMS 4800 for PC usage, where you can import this into the IVMS 4800. And as you can see, you can do temperature measurements on it and so forth. You get both the optical and the thermal image from it. So very good for your maintenance reports and so on. It's good to have the optical image in there, because sometimes it's difficult just to see. When you're seeing just a thermal image, you don't really always know what you're looking at. But because it's got the optical image built in, you've got both cameras in there. With the optical, you can see exactly what you're looking at, and then from the thermal side, you can see that. But we also have a mobile app called Hikvision. The mobile app you can download from our app store. It's the URL is appstore.hikvision.com. So appstore.hikvision.com. The Hikvision app is available for both iOS and Android. You can also scan this QR code if you'd like, but otherwise just go to appstore.hikvision.com and you will get all the apps there, including the normal HikConnect app and all those kind of things. But the Hikvision app is available from there as well. Okay, so how do we create growth in the traditional market for the commercial vision cameras? Where can we use these things? So these are the modules that I was referring to earlier. So the ones with shutters, this is for your normal type of security, let's call it static cameras or even PDZs, but for security purposes, monitoring areas and so on. And then shutterless is more maybe for your patrols, the handheld type of units, maybe even in vehicles. You can decide to use one of these modules itself. So we can sell just the thermal core itself. So the thermal core is this guy over here. That's without the rest of the Hikvision hardware that we've got in here with all the algorithms and those kind of things running. So they can use just our thermal core, which is obviously a lot more cost effective, and basically do with it whatever they need to. So you can see these guys over here, more for cameras and security related type of exercises. And this is more for your mobile, handheld, or even like for rifles and so forth. So more those patrolling type of security where it can be used. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, this is our new clip-on version for rifles and guns and those kind of things. This is a high resolution, a 640 resolution, 640 by 512, and it's got a long-range lens on it, so 50, 70, and 100 millimeter lenses on these guys over here. The normal monoculars will range between, I think we have a 160 resolution in these now as well. Excuse me, but otherwise 384 resolution, 384 resolution. These things are IP67, so they can handle rain and snow and dust and all those kind of things. And they can also do hot tracking. So we'll track heat or thermal objects and so forth. Operating time on the battery, the built-in battery, 7 hours on that there, 5 hours on this guy over here, and another 8 hours on this guy over here. So yeah, have a look at these things. Like I said, we do have the 160 resolution now for your guards or policing or border patrols, those kind of things. And we can also use them in places like the Kruger National Park, you know, where you need to look for poachers and so on. They can easily hide in thick bush and so forth. With a thermal imager, you can easily pick up those guys. Okay, so that is in a nutshell, thermal imaging. I hope I taught you something about it or got you a little bit more excited about the thermal range of cameras and possibly where you can use them. So we're going to go over to Damon next. So Damon will show us how to configure these things, especially when it comes to the analytics and so on. Like I mentioned earlier, you draw up a few analytics, not just one line crossing, one intrusion detection. So yeah, Damon, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen so you can share yours, and then please show us what these cameras can do.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, here we go. First, let me show you our thermal camera. Let's see, this is the device model, and then today I will just show you how to configure the VCA for the thermal camera. Let's go to VCA for the device. In the basic setting, we can if we want to use the device to let it more accuracy, we should enable the intelligence analysis, and then we can also enable display VCA info on stream, such as if we want the people's tracker also show on the live view, we can display traces. Also, we can enable the target marking color. Those things we can also enable it. For the camera calibration, which normally used for to calibration our VCA setting, which means it will make our VCA accurate, VCA more accurate. The shadow region we can such as if those error we don't want it detected, we just draw a box, and then those error will be shadowed. Here we go to the ruler. For the rulers, we can set such as I have already set one intrusion detection, and then we just draw an intrusion box in the area where we want to do the VCA, want to do the intrusion detection. Here is the draw box, draw arrow. I will redo it again, and such as we just click and then name the ruler name, such as intrusion detection. Also, ruler type, we have the lane crossing, intrusion, also the region entrance or the region exit. Today I will show you the intrusion first. For the intrusion, it's the duration time, which means if the person go into this area, the duration time over 1 second, it will be trigger alarm. Also the sensitivity, I think you know it's better. Also for the detection target, we have the human and vehicle, This you can choose what you want. Just you to filter false alarm. Here I will set the intrusion box here. Just draw the box where you want to do the VCA to do the intrusion detection, and then save it. we can see here is filled by pixel, which means for the on the rulers we have the minimal size and the maximal size. For the minimal size, which means sorry, just go again. This is the insurance box for the minimal size, which means if the person size less than this minimal size, it will not trigger alarm. Also, the maximum size, which means if the person size over this maximum size, it will not trigger alarm. Only the things tagged between minimum and maximum, it will trigger alarm. Here, let me just trigger it, and we can have see what's the result. Actually, for the I just added the device to the 4200 software before. Today. You can see the intrusion detection alarm. It will show on the 4200 software. It will also give us a picture and also linkage video. And then we can also search the event in the event search. All the intrusion detection, and then we can also export one import one Excel file for the alarm details. Here is the setting for the intrusion detection. Also, we can also say the lane crossing. I just show you quickly. Here you can choose one lane crossing, and then draw a line. And then we should, if we want to filter false alarm, we should also enable the filter by pixel, and then also draw the minimal size and also the maximum size to filter the false alarm. Let me just trigger it again. It's not here. It isn't. I think it may be not triggered. Sorry, this is not be triggered. But this rulers what we set in the intrusion detect the lane crossing. It's just the same like the VCA detection. Just same with the intrusion detection. Here is the settings for the thermal camera patcher. Here is more important. In the thermal camera, we can choose the VC resource type, such as if we want to do the behavior analysis, we should enable temperature measurement and behavior analysis. If we want this thermal camera to detect the fire, we need to choose the second one, fire detection. But after we enable it, we can only let this device do the fire detection, cannot do the behavior analysis. So those two, we can only choose one. If we want to, you just make sure what function you want to do on the thermal camera. In this part, do you have some question for this thermal camera settings?
No, it doesn't look like any questions, Damon.
Okay, if so, maybe we can go to let's go to check the temperature screening thermal camera. I think we can also share some. Let me just check. To the live. Here I'll just introduce you our temperature screening camera, which means this camera can detect our temperature temperature, and if our temperature is abnormal, it will give us alarm, and let the security guy to know this. Here I'll go to the temperature settings. Normally, the basic setting, we just enable the temperature measurement, also display the temperature info on stream. Here is the emissivity. This is default. We don't need to change it. For the distance is the real distance what the device used. We should input the real distance from the camera to the person to detect the temperature. Also, then we go to temperature settings configuration. We can enable the face detection, also upload the capture face image. It will get where we can also overlay the information what you want. This the alarm when temperature is above, which means if our temperature is above 37.8 degree, it will give us an alarm. Here we can also set the rulers. We can set the detection zone. This is the yellow one, and the minimal pupil distance, also the maximal pupil distance, which means only the person in the minimal pupil distance and the minimal distance, we can detect his temperature. The linkage method, we just maybe just do the alarm schedule. Also, the linkage method, I think those patterns you know is better. Also, here is a face capture, which means our temperature screening camera can do the face capture, which means when we use this camera, it can take a picture, and on the picture we can also see our temperature on the picture. Here we can also set the shadow region where we don't want to do the temperature screening. Also, the advanced configuration, we should upload the features, which means we need if we want such the face temperature on the software, we need to enable this. Here we just go to the live view. I'll show you the results. I'll stand before the camera. We can see the temperature. And then we can check the temperature on the software. This is a temperature measurement picture. We can see in the software, it will give us the person's temperature. Also, we can see it very details. It has the optical picture, also the thermal picture.
Sorry, Damon, we cannot see that screen that you're referring to. Can you just share that screen?
Let me just maybe share again, okay?
Yes.
Okay, here you can you see now? Hello?
Yes, we can see that. Thanks, Damon.
Yeah. Maybe let me just do again, okay? Do you see my temperature on the live view?
Sorry, Damon. No, we don't see the live view screen. We see the event management or event center.
Okay, can you? So this screen, can you see now?
Yes, we can see the screen for the event center. Yes.
Okay, we can see in the 4200 software, we can see the temperature screening camera. Upload the face capture, upload the capture picture on the system. We can see optical channel and the thermal channel. It all have the temperature info on the picture. It can also link one of our face. So it will give us very details info.
Yeah, so the face that you're talking about there is the face of the person that's been enrolled on the system.
This we don't need to enroll the person in the system. This picture is from the device. The device will capture the face and face picture and then upload it to the 4200 software.
Oh, the face capture from the optical camera. Okay, yes, got it.
Yeah. From the thermal camera, it's both the optical and the thermal. It all can upload to the face capture. Temperature. Do you have some question in this pattern? I think those all the settings for our thermal camera today. If you have some question, maybe just input the QA chatbot and we'll reply to you.